I took my love, took it down. I climbed a mountain and I turned around, and I saw my reflection in snow-covered hills till the landslide brought me down. Oh, mirror in the sky, what is love? Can the child within my heart rise above? Can I sail through the changing ocean tides? Can I handle the seasons of my life? Well, I've been afraid of changing, 'cause I've built my life around you. But time makes you bolder, even children get older, and I'm getting older too. Well, I've been afraid of changing, 'cause I've built my life around you. But time makes you bolder, even children get older, and I'm getting older too. Oh, I'm getting older too. Ah, take my love, take it down. Ah, climb a mountain and turn around. And if you see my reflection in the snow-covered hills, where the landslide will bring it down. And if you see my reflection in the snow-covered hills, well, the landslide will bring it down. Oh, the landslide will bring it down.
Hi. Hello. Hi. How's it going? The last day. Did I look up emotional song and just play, what is this song called? Fleetwood Mac, Landslide? Yeah, I did. Why? Because it's emotional today. Today is, I'm trying to convince myself that it's not. It is our last day in Blender doing the donut tutorial. I don't know if I'll continue on with these Blender live streams, but if I do, I can assure you that it will not be for the donut, unfortunately. Or unfortunate for you, fortunate for me, because this has taken so long. And honestly, with anything that takes this long, no matter whether it's good or it's bad, there's a sense of ownership that comes to something that when you're spending so long working on it. And we're on day 6 now, and hour number something crazy. We've put in. Can I do the math? Let's look. I also have a playlist that I started for this. Okay. Let me get out the calculator app, which was apparently just announced to be coming to the iPad. I don't have an iPad, so I'm actually very shocked that it wasn't there already. I don't know how to calculate time because it's not out of 100, it's out of 60. Let's do it by ourselves. 1 hour. Let's round up to 1.5 hours. So then that one we will round down to 2.5 hours. This is a very rough estimate. So together, that's 4 hours. 5.5 plus the 4-hour stream on Friday, which wasn't technically 4 hours, but okay. I'm gonna guesstimate maybe 12 hours, which makes sense. It's on average about 2 hours per stream. So far. And yeah, that's a long time. 12 hours. That's like half of a day. That's half of 24 hours that I've been sitting in this chair. Yesterday, you didn't get to see my face. I started the stream a little bit late today just to make sure that I got everything set up so you could see my face. I'll move this to that side. Is that better? That way you can... Hello. Because if I'm on this side, then you get the shadow, and it's... You shouldn't be getting the shadow. I'm just now realizing. Oh yeah, my key light's on this side now, I guess. Okay, I don't know where to put that microphone. Okay. So, without further ado, hi. This is not this is not our donut. If this were our donut, I would cry right now. So hopefully I should come here. No, I'm not going to save changes to the cube. There we are. There's our donut. And this looks like this is Eevee, is this? No, we're in cycles. Oh, it's without our shading. Interesting. There's our Eevee, our cycles and our shading. Yeah. So this is what I think our rendered image is going to look like. Oh, these samples are taking a long time. Okay. It's very rough. Should it be that rough? I don't know if it should be that rough. Viewport. What was it at before? Wasn't it at 1,000 last time? Do I need denoise on? Oh. Well, that solves that. What's the downsides to that? Huh. That's pretty nifty. Is there a downside to using the denoise? I don't know. Okay. Well, here we are. Uh-oh. Here we are. This is where we've been. So let me pull up our favorite guy. Have to keep readjusting that. Our favorite guy, Blender Guru. Yay! And I can't hear him.
Or more specifically, keyframe animation, because character animation with its rigs and bones and things is its own entire separate beast we're not going to get into. We're just going to do a very simple camera move. Specifically, we want the camera to start above the donuts and then fall down to reveal the final plate at the end, right?
We're here. Okay. Let's go.
It's time to learn about animation,
Woo!
Or more specifically, keyframe animation.
Okay.
Because character animation with its rigs and bones and things is its own
That's something that I do want to learn.
Beast we're not going to get into. We're just going to do a very simple camera move. Specifically, we want the camera to start above the donuts and then fall down to reveal the final plate at the end, right? It's an excuse to learn about keyframing. Well, the basics of animation is really simple. If you go to the bottom of your screen, if you're in layout at the layout at the top, we can drag up on this divider here, and you can see we've got a timeline, which if I click and drag across is currently doing nothing because there is no animation.
And we're already aware of keyframes, so hopefully this can go a little bit quicker.
So if
We have 3 videos to get through, but this one's shorter and the last one's shorter, and the one in between is kind of long actually. That might be the longest one. Yep, that's the longest one.
Right? I'm just going to do a really simple animation to show you don't have to follow this because this is a different animation than what we're going to do.
Where did he put his sprinkles? Because right now our sprinkles are like on the ground. Here. Our sprinkles are right there actually. Here, I can't. There we go. Our sprinkles are right here. So what did he do with his? Where did he put his?
Animation is really simple. You select the object that you want to apply a keyframe to, and then you hit I. I for insert keyframe, and you get this like scary looking menu. Apparently they're going to change this eventually, but for now you would place a keyframe on what it is you're planning to animate. So in this case, it's the location, right? So I want to move the camera, location. Then I change my frame count to be the frame I want it to end at. Then I move the object how I want it to move, right there. And then I add another keyframe, I, and then say location. And now, as I play it back, which I can do by hitting spacebar, you can see that the camera is moving. Haha, look at us. Right? A very simple camera move. Now, I don't actually want that though, so I'm going to delete those keyframes. And what we want is, we want what I showed you at the start. We want our camera to start up here, right? Rotated, pointing down this way. And then we want it to move in an arc in this direction. Terrible arrow. Pointed this way, right? Now you could do this. You could move the camera up there. You could then re-rotate it to point it down and then do a keyframe for the location, the rotation, and then do another one over here. But it would be very difficult to control that movement. And really, this is a rather simple movement if we have a pivot object. If we have something here and then we parent that camera to that object and then we just rotate that object, it's a lot easier. So what we need to add is, first of all, I want to think, what do I want to be the center of it? What do I want to be, where do I want that pivot object? So I think, somewhere roughly in the middle of these donuts. So right here, I'm going to hold down Shift and
right click for the 3D cursor.
And then right click, and that's going to put my 3D cursor.
We're experts. We've learned so much. Thank you, Blender Guru. Oh, no, not this again.
Right where I've put it. And now to add an object, Shift A, and I'm looking for empty. So an empty, I mean, if
that's
you're
like a null object
other,
in After Effects.
Creative tools, you probably already know, but it's just something, it's similar to a null object in After Effects.
Wait, did I say that? Did I? Wait, I'm going to listen to this real quick. Hold on.
And then do a keyframe, right click, and that's going to...
Hold on, I'm looking at the stream.
A, and I'm looking for empty. So an empty, I mean, if
that's
you're
like a null object
other,
in After Effects.
Creative tools, you probably already know, but it's just something, it's similar to a null object in After Effects.
That's funny, dude. That's really funny. Okay.
Etc. It's just something that's it's just something.
I like how he didn't even say null object. It's specifically a null object in After Effects as well. Literally, it's so funny.
It's similar to a null object in After Effects, etc. It's just something that's going to be in the 3D viewport that won't be rendered. Okay, a number of options here. It doesn't matter which one you choose. You can go plain axes, and then if you went to the options here, the data, you could change the display here to what we saw before. But this is just like a different display object, right? Depending on what you're looking for. I think the sphere is actually the most useful. It's way too big currently, so I'm going to change the size.
Okay, I have a few steps to get caught up on, so let's get caught up. Shift A. Uh-oh. There we go.
To be something about that. And there we go. Okay, so now what we need to do is we want to parent our camera to this new empty object. So select the camera first, then shift select that new empty that we've just created, and then I'm going to hit Control P and then set parent object keep transform, just like what we did with the icing and the donut. So now you should.
Whoa. I'm never not gonna get used to, or I'm never gonna get used to, oh, wrong button. I'm never gonna get used to the 3D cursor.
See if you select that empty, and as I rotate it around, the camera will rotate with it. And if you look through the camera with numpad 0 and then just double tap R, you can see that I can trackball rotate around it. And you can see this is like way that I can, if you look through the camera, empty, and as I rotate it around.
Oh, it's a rotate. Oh yeah, look at that.
The camera will rotate with it. And if you look through the camera with numpad 0 and then just double tap R, you can see that I can trackball rotate around it. And you can see this is like way more flexible for what we want. We want the camera to be focused on one point, and then we just want to move the camera around that point. And you can do some really nice, fast camera moves here if you wanted to do something snazzy. In our case, we're going to do a nice, simple, slow movement. So first of all, this angle, this look that we've got right here, is where we want the final reveal to be. So this is where I want the end point, the end keyframe of my animation to be. So you can make your animation as long as you want. I think about 160 frames is about right for this sort of the speed of this animation. So on frame 160 there, you can see it's also mentioned there, I'm going to, with my empty selected, not my camera, I'm going to hit I, and then not select the location like I did before, but rotation, because we're going to be just rotating that pivot point, not changing its position. So rotation. Then I'm going to go to the first frame, which I could do by clicking and dragging, or shift left arrow will jump you to the first frame, or you can click these little, I don't know what you call that button, jump to end point. You can do that as well. And now that I'm here, I'm going to rotate this along not the tilt axis, which it is by default, but the X axis. Aha, right. So now you can see we're doing that exact move we want. And in the top left-hand corner, you can see the exact number of degrees. And I'm going to go with exactly -90. So if you hold down Control, you can see it's snapping to -90. And then I'm going to click. Okay. Now before I change my frame, if I was to change the...
Let's go ahead and do that now. Hello, last day. It's the last day. Oh, wait. That's not what I want. I need to hide these things. I'm gonna forget, I feel like. I, right? How do I... Oh, is it this one that I click I on? No. What?
I'm going to hit I and 60 there. You can see it's also mentioned there. I'm going to, with my empty selected, not my camera, I'm going to hit I and then not select the location.
Oh, I'm confused. My empty is selected. I'm going to hit I. That is the I button. Why isn't... I feel like it was working the other day. Have I really never tried it out yet? I is not doing anything. Empty. I. Again, it's not doing anything. Oh. Okay. Oh. Well, there we are. Shout out to this this comment right here. Oh, and this person right here. And probably like 50 other people here too. Did I insert one? I missed it. I don't see one. K. Rotation. What is this? No, I don't want auto keying.
Like I did before, but rotation, because we're going to be just rotating that pivot point, not changing its position. So rotation. Then I'm going to go to the first frame.
See, mine didn't create a keyframe? Question mark. That I don't know why it's not creating a keyframe. K, rotation. K, rotation. If I skip forward here, I go K. Can I hit rotation again? If I go K, rotation. Why can't I see my keys? Hello? That's odd why I can't see my keyframes.
Which I could do by clicking and dragging, or shift left arrow will jump you to the first frame, or you can click these little I don't know what you call that button, jump to endpoint. You can do.
Why are keyframes in Blender not showing on timeline? I don't know why I can't see my keyframe. Oh, they have easy. Wait. K, wait. We're here. K, rotation. I, all channels. What? Someone needs to explain to me how keyframes work. I want to end here, so I'm going to hit K, rotation. I'm going to go to the beginning. I'm going to hit K, rotation, and then I'm going to rotate it among the X. I said the X-axis, and it did not create a keyframe. Zero. We want to be at 0. There we are. Now we hit R, X, up to Well, that's not right. I keep forgetting to set the keyframe. R, X. And because it's doing the weird thing again. And then we hit K. No. Then we hit K. Rotation. Okay. Oh. Well, that's odd. What? Remember when we said keyframes were going to be easy because... Boy, was I wrong. There we go. Oh, but then he's going to try to do... We're going to skip easing if he has that because there's no way for me to do that for non-existent keyframes.
Do that as well. And now that I'm here, I'm going to rotate this along not the tilt axis, which it is by default. You can to where I were. So always remember, you have to create a keyframe if you've changed its movement without saving it or without putting in a new keyframe. So back up to here, -90, and I'm going to hit I and then say rotation.
Oh, he still has the
And now
sprinkles.
we should see, if we hit spacebar to play, a very, very simple animation. Okay, now we can tweak this though. We can improve this because you can see that for one, it's a little awkward that the camera starts in a completely stationary stop position, then it ramps up, and then it slows down towards the end. It's a little bit of a weird camera move. What I want instead is I want it to start, I already want it to be moving, right? Like almost like it's from another shot that's kind of faded into this one. I want it to start moving and then to much more slowly fade it out than it is currently, because you can see it just kind of like drops down here and then the camera just stops and it's a little too sudden. And while you could change the keyframes here, like you can do some very simple handle type changes, this view, this layout view is not the best place to do this. So instead, if you go to the animation tab at the top there, you can see.
Oh, has everything moved to here? Oh. Here is our predicament.
It's rearranged all your screens. This over here is just another 3D view. Over here is the camera view. But at the bottom here, you can see we've changed from the timeline, which is what we had before, and it's changed to a dope sheet. So a dope sheet is just going to show you more information about the keyframes. So for example, you can see that the X rotation has a dot over here and a dot over here, but the Y and the Z has a different look. It's got a continuous line across it. And that's to show you that this actually hasn't changed. The Y and the Z has no information that's changed from the start to the end. So we don't actually need these keyframes. So I only need the X rotation. So I'm going to select the Y and the Z, and I'm just going to delete them just by hitting the delete key. So we've now just got one channel. That the animation is happening on. Right, but we can't really change it. We can't make it so that this starts faster and then this slows down from this view. Instead, we need to change to a different view. So in the top left-hand corner, click this, and we're going to change the window type to be graph editor. Okay, so the graph editor looks like this. I'm going to use middle mouse to pan around here. And you can see we've now got a line, right, with some handles on it, which is a lot easier to understand, but it's hard to get it all in the view. So you could hit the home key, and that will automatically reorient everything to position it in the view. Or if you hold down control and middle mouse button, this enables you to just moving around, just dragging around, control middle mouse button will change the axes zoom, as well as the Y, right, up and down like that, which is just a really handy way to quickly orient yourself around. So control middle mouse to change this, and then you can middle mouse to pan to a different area.
Like seasick.
Okay, so again, making sure I'm looking at the X rotation there, right? And if we look, you should see the problem that we have, right? We have the start of the animation. It's a very slow curve that's going up.
It's an S curve. It's like the learning curve of Blender, except this one is just infinitely higher.
It picks up speed in the middle, and then it ends here. And the end is a little abrupt considering the amount of movement that it has. So really, we want this line instead to look a little bit closer to this line, right? Or even, I mean, that was kind of a bad line. Pull it rather like that. Okay, that's the kind of look that we want. So with our starting keyframe here, I'm going to use the same hotkey that you use everywhere, and that's R, to just get that angle to look a lot closer to what I want.
Okay, we go here. We go here. We go. Oh. Hello? Why does his look different than mine?
Don't go too far up. If you go like vertical, you'll see that the start is like so abrupt. It's almost like it's like skipping down or something. So I don't want it to be that far. I'm going to rotate a little bit out like that. So there's a little bit of a harsh movement, but not too harsh, if you know what I mean. There we go, something like that. And then for this end bit, you can see it ends rather suddenly. Maybe you disagree, but I found when I looked at the animation, it was rather sudden. So this final endpoint here, I'm going to scale it out by hitting S. So again, same hotkeys work all across Blender, which is very nice. Awesome. So now, if I play it back, you should see it moves rather fast at the beginning and then slowly tapers out towards the end to a nice soft landing, which is really cool. And that's pretty well, yeah, that's a pretty good animation. Now we could stop here, but the other thing we could do to get a little bit more motion in it is we could have the camera start closer to the donuts and then pull out as it goes further away. I hate that this keeps interrupting. I'm going to hide that. Okay, there we go. Select my pivot. There we go. So essentially, we could have it so that it starts, like the camera starts right about here, and then it pulls out, and then as it pulls out, it goes a little bit further away and like ends back here. So have a think about how you would do that. How would you have the camera start closer to the pivot point? Right? Now you might think, well, okay, we could animate the camera pulling in closer, but that would be overly complicated. We can just use the same pivot point.
Is it going to be like scale or something?
But we can scale it.
Wow.
You can see if I hit S, look at that. The camera goes closer. And if I pull it out, you can see the camera moves.
Wow. That's crazy.
Further away.
It's going to be less crazy. But like for now, when I'm learning this stuff, I'm like, wow, I'm just guessing and I'm getting it right. It's because I'm learning stuff. This past 6 days have been more informative than, I hope none of my professors see this, like a semester of college.
So what I want to do is I want to go to the final endpoint.
No offense if any of my professors are watching this.
Yeah, the frame 160, which by the way, you can jump to an existing keyframe just by using the up and down arrows. So if I go up, you can see it's that keyframe, or down, it takes me to
I think it's the same in After Effects.
The front. So I want to go here and I want to create a keyframe just for the scale information. So here, because this is the end view that I want, so I'm going to hit I and then say not rotation, but scale. So now I'm going to go to the front of the animation and I'm going to
Nope. I'm sorry. That was my bad. Oh wait. I remember how to do this. Which one was it? Image editor? No. This is embarrassing. The 3D viewport. I knew it was that one. I just couldn't find it for some reason. That's Oh wait, what? Oh, that's this one's. Wait. How do I go back to? How do I log back into? Oh goodness, I give up. How do I go back to my camera view? That was I don't have the 0. I don't have the number pad, so I can't click 0. I don't have the number pad 0. Is there any other way for me to do it? I did a dumb thing. I did a very dumb thing. No. 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 Key map. Camera. I have to find like a shortcut key that's not currently being used. What is C being used for? New collection. I don't know what circle select is. Is this something that I would use often? Because C for camera. Oh, I might actually use that often. I can't tell. Keybinds not used in Blender. I can always change it later. I'm changing our camera to be sure. Okay, we're good. We're good. There we go. That works. Okay, that took a while.
Scale it in to get a nice close-up of the donuts, right?
Okay.
There.
Why can't I see a bonjour? Bonjour? Did he go back to... No, he can see his things somehow. I don't know how he can see his things.
And then I'm going to add another.
Oh goodness, why can't I see the thing? That's... Wow! Did he tell me how to do that? Because that's super annoying if I don't know how to do that. Okay. Okay. I'm so close to being done. And animation's actually one of the things, like keyframing is actually one of the things that I want to learn, but it's so not correct in this tutorial. And I don't know if it's Blender Guru's fault or if it's Blender's fault for being very, very dumb. But this is not intuitive. The way that Blender Guru is teaching is intuitive. This right here is not intuitive. Whew. Okay. Wow. Wow. Let's make sure that the only thing that is being animated in this entire thing is actually being animated. Okay. Let's delete this keyframe. Yeah. Deleted both of them. Yeah, it did. Oh, no, it didn't. Okay. Was I able to see it before? Let me look back. Doesn't look like I was ever able to see the orb. Maybe I missed something somehow. I must have missed an instruction somehow. But I have no idea where it could have been, so... That's going to be K for keyframe. Scale. Now we come back into animation and we go. Did it create a keyframe? No. Okay, so wow. Wow. This is not intuitive in the slightest. This makes me want to oh, 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 oh. Ooh. Okay. So obviously yeah. Let's get rid of this thing. Get rid of that keyframe. I said get rid of that keyframe. Delete key. No, it's still there. Wow. Delete. Delete keyframe. Okay. Something's happened with the scale there. I don't know what it is, but I give up. So we're just going to keep going.
Another keyframe, I, and then it's scale. So you should now see in your graph editor.
I'm slightly irritated, but it's okay because this is not up-to-date information, so I don't have to feel as though I'm missing out on learning this.
What it's called. You should see your rotation information and then your scale information.
Yep.
Now you'll note that the scale here are types into one view, right? Because rotation is happening on a, you can see here, it's a, oh, I just wrote over the top of it. It's 0 degrees, and then down here you've got minus 90. So this is a minus 90, right? But then up here we've got scale that's happening between a 0 range and a 1 range, which is right next to it, okay? So 1, you could just hide your rotation, or you can click on normalize. And normalize will put everything between a 0 to 1 range. But just know that when you're in this range, if you try to move a keyframe to be a different value, like you took your scale and then you moved it down, when you confirm it, it'll snap back to where it was. And that's because with normalize on, it'll always put everything between 0 to 1. So don't do it if you're planning to change a value of something, normalize, but otherwise it's okay to use for changing the handles, like in this case. But I'm going to hide my rotation anyway, because it's just going to get in the way. And instead you can see that X, Y, and Z all have information in them, because of course we're not scaling it on any particular axes. It's across all 3 axes at once, because it's like it's the uniform value of scale. So again, I could do the same thing here. I could rotate this. I don't want there to be too much of a difference. Like, it's actually pretty good. By default, like the scale isn't as noticeable that it slowly ramps up, and it's good to have like a kind of a softer movement as it pulls away, but I do want to change it a little bit. I'm going to select these final endpoints. I'll scale that out a little bit as well, just so that it's a little softer as it scales out. And that is pretty good, folks. Now, you'll note as I play through this that in the top left-hand corner of the screen, you've got FPS, which stands for frames per second. If you play video games, you're already well familiar with that term. And you can see as we play through it, it can't really make up its mind. It's like 24, 25, 26, 24. I think it's just a readout glitch in Blender. It's actually a constant 24 frames per second by default, but for whatever reason, it's kind of like fluctuating between them. Anyway, point is you can change that amount by going to your output settings over here, and then underneath format, you've got frame rate. Now, for whatever reason, Blender chose 24 frames per second, which is really only used for feature film. Everyone else, for like TV or YouTube, it's 30 frames per second. You can also go 60 frames per second if you wanted to really pay for longer render times, because it means things have to be, you have to render like twice as many frames, but it means things are buttery smooth. You won't actually see it right now because I'm recording this tutorial at 30 frames per second. Anyways, really, the options that most people choose are 24 for cinema and feature films, 30 if you're a normal person and you're making things for internet or YouTube or anything, and then 60 if it's for like 3D content or something that has to be really, really smooth. Anyways, we're going to set it to 30 because that is the more standard frame rate for most things. I know people like to argue, but yes, 30 is, in my opinion, a much more reasonable frame rate for most things. And the final thing you'll note as we play through this is that it gets to frame 160 and then just kind of pauses for a bit until it gets to frame 250, and then it loops back. And that is because the end frame is set to 250. So if we set this to 160 instead, which is what our animation ends at, you can see it will now play through and it'll get to the end and then it will loop back to the start. And also if you want to like reset this view in your timeline, you can hit the home key and that'll like expand it out a little bit. And there you go. So that is basically our...
I'm going to do that last thing that he said. Everything else, I don't care. Because it's not up to date. What am I supposed to do?
Final animation. You can tweak it.
What does it look like with our shader zone?
So you can make it look a little bit more polished than what I have here, because when I'm recording a tutorial, I can only do so much before people get bored. But that's pretty good. It's not bad. So we are nearing the end. Go ahead, click here to join me in what might be the final part, where we're going to do rendering and forming that final animation. So click there, and I will see you there. We've got... the donuts. We've got the animation. We've got.
Let me try doing it on my own first, just to challenge myself. This was a bad idea. This is still the first frame. That is insane. Okay, just kidding. I was joking. I kid. Cancel the rendering.
Got the donuts, we've got the animation. Now it's time to do our final lovely render. So we are rendering using the Cycles rendering engine, which, to jog your memory from the rendering video, the way it works is, turning off the noise, is it starts with a very noisy image with a low sample count, and then over time, you can see in the top left there, it throws more samples at it, and it refines that image to be cleaner and cleaner, essentially. So if we were to set this maximum sample count to a really absurdly low value, like say 10 samples, you can see it renders very quickly, right? It's done almost instantaneously, but it's so noisy that you can't see any of the detail. Now, there is the magical denoise function, which we will be using. However, that is not, it does solve a lot. It's definitely helpful, but it's not perfect, especially for animations. Because on each frame, the sample variation, even though it's set to be stable, there will be variances frame to frame. So if you're using a low sample count, this AI denoiser, it will do its best, but it'll still have like splotchy patterns that will appear. And you can actually notice it if you go looking for it. Like the other day I was watching one of Mr. Beast's videos, and there was like an animation in it, and I was like, and I saw like all this splotchy stuff like on the sides, and I was like, oh damn, that team must be on like a really tight deadline because they did not have time to render out the proper samples. But anyways, so I did a few tests.
So I should turn off denoise. Well, it was fun while. Well, that's just with our. That's not with our render. Oh, our render denoise is still on.
For this exact scene here, you can see this is with 20 samples. You zoom into the background there, you can see splotchiness. It's especially noticeable in out of focus areas, which I'll show you how to do that out of focus soon. But you can see it's very splotchy and you wouldn't ever want to use it. 50 starts to look a little more stable, but still the splotchiness is very noticeable. You don't want that. 100, this is where it's starting to look usable, but still not great. I wouldn't consider that good. 300 samples is where I consider the bare minimum for a scene like this. But ideally, you would be able to go up to 500 samples, which is where a lot of that splotchiness is so negligible that you don't really notice it. And if you have time or you don't mind rendering, overnight or something like that, or maybe a couple of overnights, 1,000 samples will get you an even cleaner looking result. So for my max sample amount, I'm going to go with 500. And by the way, there is viewport and there is render, and these settings are identical. I was tweaking viewport before because I was showing you in the viewport, but obviously it's what's in the render settings, which is going to be saved into your final.
What is our render at? Oh, that's right. We changed it, didn't we? It's going to take forever because like that one time on, was it Friday, it was working great, and then now it's been super slow.
Animation. There is also noise threshold, also known as adaptive sampling. And the way this works is it will try to look at the image and determine which areas are already clean enough, and then which areas need more samples, like dark areas where there's not enough light or something, and it'll throw more samples specifically into that area. And it's very efficient, and I would love to use it. Unfortunately, it doesn't play well with the denoiser. With the denoiser, it can create splotchy areas, which are not good, obviously. So if you're using the denoiser, which, let's face it, is probably 99% of the time, then you can't really use the noise threshold. At least as far as I've seen, I haven't seen it work reliably enough. So uncheck noise threshold. Samples, I went with 500. Try to go, if you're on a laptop, maybe 300, but try to go up from there and you'll get a nice clean result. There's also time limit. I almost never use this, but this just puts like a cap on each frame. So if, I don't know, the samples was going to take the image to like 25 seconds to render, if you set your time limit to be 20 seconds, it would just stop at whatever sample count 20 seconds gives it, and then it would move on to the next frame. But as I said, I almost never use it. I just want to use the exact sample count. Awesome. Now, you might remember previously that when you want to do a render, you go render image, or you hit F12, and then this will kick off a single still render. And then from here, if I wanted to save this image, I would go image, save as. Well, what we want to do is we want to render a sequence, like as every single frame. And so to do that, we want to use not just render, but render animation. And when you do that, it will use and it will save the file for you in whatever you put in the output settings over here. So if we bring this out over here, you can see your resolutions defined up there. You got your frame rate, yada, yada, the output one here. So this is the folder where it's going to save the file to. And then your file format, just move this up. This is a really important one. Now, you would think that because we want to create a video file, right, that you could upload to Instagram or YouTube or whatever, that you would want to use one of these movie settings, maybe an AVI or an FFmpeg or something like that. But you would not. You would be wrong. But it's a common mistake a lot of beginners make. The reason you don't want to ever render a scene directly into this format is that if at any point during the rendering process, your computer was to crash, or let's face it, Windows was to do another update overnight, and you can never figure out when it's going to do it, and it just does it randomly. And anyways, if it was to do that, you would lose everything. Everything that you have rendered has just vanished because it will not have created any file that you can actually read. So instead, you always render to still images. Okay, so you want every single one of these frames to create a PNG and then put it into the output folder there, which you will then later take that sequence of 300 PNG images, let's say, or it's 160 in this case, and then put that into another process, which I'll show you, to create that final video file. So PNG is actually pretty good for most cases. If you want to go a slightly higher quality, you could use TIFF. If you really know what you're doing, you could use OpenEXR. But the problem with that is that it will not use, it won't embed like a display transform in it. So it'll save it into linear format. Technical jargon just to say it's going to look terrible if you don't know what you're doing with it. So generally speaking, PNG or TIFF is the one you want. Never JPEG. The compression on that is terrible unless you're just throwing a still image up on Facebook or something. But PNG or TIFF, that's fine. And the color depth, you could go 8 or 16 bits. 16 bits will give you a lot more range, but it will be larger files. Unless you're planning to do color grading in something like After Effects or Nuke or something, I wouldn't bother with 16-bit. 8 should be fine. So you set your output folder to be something that makes sense. I usually just create a folder called frames, and then within here I just create another subfolder. I call it like 1, just because you almost always need to render multiple times. But anyways, you create a subfolder there called 1, and then I just kick off the render by going render animation. But before you do that, it is a good idea to check your scene to make sure that you haven't got any mistakes, because you're going to be rendering, and usually you're rendering overnight or maybe a sequence of days, and you don't want to have to go through the whole process of rendering only to bring it up and then go like, oh crap, I forgot to turn on that layer, or I forgot to fix that problem, or I didn't notice this before I did the render, and then you have to do the whole thing all over again. So here's a checklist. First, in solid view mode, click this little drop down next to your viewport overlays and then go face orientation. Now, what this is showing you is which faces are facing the correct direction. So the face is the solid part of the mesh and it's like paper thin, right? But there is a correct direction and there is a wrong direction. So the correct direction is the direction that the camera and the shader expects to see, and it can render correctly. If it's showing you the opposite side of the face, it means that the shading is likely to get screwed up. So if you see anything in your scene that is red, it means that it is facing the wrong direction, okay? So in this case, it thought that the kitchen should be rendered outside, right? Because it was a cube that we started with, so it puts the faces outside it because it wouldn't know that we want to render inside. So in this case, if you have a red face like this, you select it, select everything on the mesh just by tapping A, and then you want to hit Shift N, okay? Now that should fix it. If it doesn't, because on the case you want to have it facing inwards, like in this case.
Okay, so we go here, we go here. We go here, and we go Shift N.
This little recalculate normals box here, if you click that, you can then click the checkbox that says inside, or a hotkey for it is Control Shift N, and that will do a recalculation inside. Anyways, long story short, you just want to make sure that everything you see is blue. If you've got anything, a sprinkle or a donut or a plate or anything like that, just make sure everything is showing up as blue, because that's very important. All right, so now that's done, I can turn that off. The other thing that you want to check is that you haven't got any rogue objects that will be showing up in the render that you don't want to be there. Like, for example, this weird looking little UFO thing, right? These little sprinkles that are just hovering off into space here. So that is because we've got some sprinkles which are being referenced on our geometry node stack, but we don't want these individual ones which are being referenced to appear in the render. So on the sprinkles collection, I'm just going to uncheck this little camera icon, and that means it's viewable in the viewport, but it's not going to appear in the render. This will not affect the objects over here when it's referenced in a viewable in the viewport.
We're super slow now. There we go. Is that the right? That wasn't the right button.
But it's not going to appear in the render. This will not affect the objects over here. When it's referenced in a geometry node system, it's just going to treat that as its own separate thing, and it's not going to hide it from the render. But it just means that these 5 little reference sprinkles will be invisible in the render. The other thing that you want to check is to look at your intersections, okay? Because looking at my donut, look at that. Wow, I've got a massive intersection. And this would be noticeable because the camera is now moving and it is above it, right? So you don't want to have intersections. So I'm actually going to use this as an excuse to slightly reorient my donuts and create a much more appealing looking stack, because I was experimenting before I hit the record button. And I thought, if I just create, both of these stacks so they're kind of like leaning on each other, and I rotate them a little bit like this, then I take this donut, I could move it out, rotate that, something like this. There we go. Right, and then, oh yeah, I'll rotate this a little bit more. There we go. Right, and then Yeah, experimenting before. Slightly reorient my donuts and create a much more appealing looking stack because I was experimenting before I hit the record button. And
That looks pretty good.
I thought, if I just create, both of these stacks so they're kind of like leaning on each other, and I rotate them a little bit like this, then I take this donut, I can move it out, rotate that, yeah, something like this. There we go. Right, and then, I'll rotate this a little bit more. It's a leaning tower of donuts. I'll move that out a little bit. But really, with this many objects on top of each other, you're bound to have something that looks a little funky. So just look at it from different angles. I mean, the most important one is the camera, right? Making sure that it is sensible. Because we've got a moving camera, it kind of has to look good from multiple angles. The other thing I noticed also is it would look a lot better if I could see the top of this donut here. So I noticed if I select this stack and I rotate it like this, almost like it's on the edge of that plate there, like the lip, and it's kind of leaning this way, it looks a lot nicer. Yeah, see now I can see the top of that donut, and yeah, just feels a lot nicer. Might actually rotate a little bit further. And I'll move it up. Rotate this one. I'll pull that in a little bit. And that's pretty good. That's not bad. All right. There. So that's a lot more interesting, and I've also corrected a lot of the intersections there. But, as I mentioned before, guys, this is a tutorial, and I can't fix everything whilst I'm running the tutorial. So have a look at your scene, and have a look at, the plate. Is there a donut which is hovering above the plate, like it is here? Make sure that it's not, or at least make sure that it is not in a place that's noticeable, because that will not be good, and you'll be I actually finished the final animation sequence for this tutorial, and then noticed right at the end that one of the donuts was like this. And I just didn't notice it right until I did after the render sequence was complete. And actually, a coworker of mine was also working on the scene, helping render some extra sequences, and he didn't notice it either. And we were both like, damn, how did we miss that? Because you just don't go looking for it. So I'm calling it out now, because I'm sure a lot of you watching have got intersections, and it's good to try to fix it now.
I feel like confident. Uh-oh. Look at that. I was about to say, I was like, I feel confident in what I did. That's not helping. Those are still technically hovering there. Okay, that looks pretty good. We're gonna ignore the fact that the whole plate itself is hovering. I feel like I can't ignore that though. That looks pretty good.
Another one to check for is your lighting and your exposure ranges. So first thing I know is that looking at this is good. It's putting a lot of the attention on the donuts, which is great. But this, everything here in the background is just, it's so dark, it's almost hard to see. And it feels a little bit too moody, right? It's almost like a Rembrandt painting or something like that. I want it to feel a little lighter, a little bit more friendly. So on the roof here, on the ceiling of my kitchen, I'm going to shift and then right click to put my 3D cursor there. And then right at that point, I'm going to add in an area lamp. And I'm just going to move it down slightly just to make sure it's not clipping through the surface. And then, yeah, let's go look in this. So this is what it is with it off. And then if I just increase this, you can see it's just...
Yeah, that's what needs to be done. Oh yeah, definitely look at this. Oh, we're not doing this again. We are. Why does it keep? Does anyone want to explain to me why that keeps happening?
Just adding a little bit of fill light to the whole scene to just feel a little bit lighter and a little less, extreme in its light choice. But yeah, that looks pretty good. And by the way, this power value, there's something called the inverse square law that applies to all lights in the real world and in 3D software. It just means that if something is double, like twice as close to something, it means it's going to be 4 times as bright. So what this means is that I've just added in an area lamp, right, at the top of my ceiling, but that's because this is just the size of the box that I've got. If yours is a little bit shorter than this, right, then when you placed it, then this lamp and this lamp energy that we've just defined here as 10 watts is going to be a lot brighter. So don't copy the values that I'm putting here. Have a look at your scene and try to evaluate and go, is it bright enough? Is it too bright? Do I feel that this fill light is too overpowering, right? Or is it underpowering? Just evaluate and try to do it as fairly as you can. And something that I recommend, and this I do a lot of the time for a lot of final renders, is underneath your color management, if you go to view transform, change it from AGX to false color. Now, this obviously you never want to do for a final render. But this is revealing to you what is the exposure range of different parts of the image. Kind of like if you're using a camera and it's got like a zebra thing to like show you which parts are clipping. This is like that, but it's like to an advanced level. Essentially, it's showing you, I mean, I'll put this up from their Blender documentation, but it's showing you what is the exposure range of which parts of the image. And there's no like right or wrong here, but generally speaking, you want to have a nice range because then it's showing there are parts that are in light and then there are parts that are in shadows, and there is a range there so that you can reveal the form. There are exceptions to it, but generally that's the idea. Now, in my case, I want to make sure that really there's very few areas that are in the red or the white. The white means there is actually no information there because it has clipped. So that is not good. It's okay for a few areas, right, where there's a few highlights, but generally speaking, you don't want too much. Now, in my case, I think it's a little bit too high, so I'm just dialing it back, and just so that I get most...
I have a ton, so... Wait. Oh, that's crazy. Is that not white? I'm confused. Is this white? Oh, goodness.
Of the part of the donut where it's hitting the light, It's mostly in the orange to yellow range with very small amounts of red or white coming through. So once I'm happy with that, make sure you change it back to AGX, otherwise you'll be rendering to false color, and that will look horrible. A few other aesthetic choices. I noticed that the pink was a little bit too hot. The saturation does make a difference, so I'm just going to dial it back to around about a 0.6 value. I also noticed that this yellow color was a little bit too close to mustard, so I'm just going to tweak the hue here just to make it a little bit more exciting, kind of like a banana yellow, right? And a little bit brighter as well, just a little bit more cheerful. The blue I'm going to make a little closer to an aqua, which is a little more funky, a little, I don't know, more interesting, at least to me. The base color, oh yeah, this one here. So I decided after looking at this and evaluating it, I'm like, I should just go with the white icing like what I had in my my final render. So just creating a new material, call it white icing, right? And also for the donut, I noticed I forgot to put subsurface scattering on the donut itself, because donut, although it's bread, right, it's not going to have as much subsurface scattering as the icing, but it will have some, right? So I'm going to give it a weight of 1, radius, make sure that's always set to 1, and then this value here, let's go 0.01, right? So as the white icing, and I'm like, at least careful, get a little bit more. I also noticed too hot, you'll be small amounts of false color, and that will look horrible. A few other aesthetic choices. I noticed that the pink was a little bit too hot. The saturation does make a difference. So I'm just going to dial it back to around about a 0.6 value. I also noticed that this yellow color was a little bit my final after looking at a new material, because give it a weight of 1, radius, make sure that's always set to 1, and then this value here, let's go 0.01, like that, which I think is actually more than the icing that we gave it. But anyways, it works because it's kind of doughy. We can kind of get away. Maybe I'm having second thoughts right now. Yeah, we've got 0.01. Why not? Make it look a little bit more stylized and cartoonish. The other thing that I can see looking at this is that this part here, right, with these ball sprinkles on it, it's very like high frequency detail, which is just like a technical term to mean like small detail. Artists always invent terms just to sound smarter than they are, but it looks high frequency, right? And it's a little too high frequency. It's good to have some small detail, but not that small. It's just it's kind of gritty, and it's kind of like it's sticking out like a sore thumb to me. So what I'm going to do is go to my geometry node setup just for my round sprinkles here. And by the way, also make sure you're looking at the correct one, not long sprinkles. Uncheck that little pin if you've got. Got it, like I did. And then I'm going to change the round sprinkle scale, dragging down to 1.5. So it's a lot bigger, which means I can use a different distance min value, 0.002. And whilst I'm here, I'm also going to change the distance value for the long sprinkles, because I noticed it was feeling a little too even, the distribution of these, which generally means that with this Poisson distribution, I noticed it was 2. And whilst I'm here, I'm also going to change the distance sprinkle scale, dragging down 0.002. And whilst I'm here, I'm also going to change the distance value for the long sprinkles, because I noticed it was feeling a little too even, the distribution of these, which generally means that with this Poisson distribution, it's using the distance to make sure that they're all perfectly evenly spaced, and it's a little bit, it's too big, essentially. So I'm going to set this to 0.004 instead, which means you will have some overlaps and some clipping, but if we use a lower count here in our setup, like 80, for example, clipping, but
this is me realizing how much of this whole tutorial went over my head. That I don't really remember most of this stuff. It's fine. I'm gonna relearn it probably over and over again.
If we use, so I'm going to set this to 0.004 instead, which means you will have some overlaps and some clipping, but if we use a lower count here in our setup, like 80, for example.
I know I don't have the same as him, but aw, I kind of like more sprinkles. Yeah, that's fine.
Example, or even lower, right? It should feel a lot more natural, right? It doesn't look like before it was like 200 when it was, this was 0.006, and now it's like 30, but it still almost feels like the same as what it was before because that distance, when you lower it, you're getting more sprinkles in there, even though it's a lower sprinkle density. Anyways, technical. Also lower this one because that's just too many, so let's go like 50 for that. And that's pretty good. You can also experiment, like I tried changing the different, like whether this one has long sprinkles or whether this one at the top has round. You can play around with these. I went, I think the bottom one I gave long.
I think I do actually want to change that. If I could remember how to do that.
This one, I'm going to turn it off. You can play around with these. I went, I think the bottom one I gave long sprinkles or whether this one at the top has round. You can play around with these. I went, I think the bottom one I gave long sprinkles or whether this one at the top has round. You can play around with these.
Wow. Wow. No. 100. That was a ton of sprinkles, dude.
I went, I think the bottom one I gave long. This one, I'm going to turn it off. So no sprinkles on that one. And just try and get a nice, feel for it. I really just trying to go for something that looks a little balanced in its detail, so you don't have too much repetition across it. So I'm trying to get a nice breakup of like round, long, none, round, etc. The other thing, since we're talking about detail, is looking at this, right? This is small detail. This is small detail. These shapes here, right? This is large detail. Okay, so we've got large and we've got this small detail. We don't have any medium detail. And it's good to have a variance across the scene. Just, I don't know, it's one of the design rules. It just helps things feel a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. So something I saw when I was looking on Pinterest many years ago for one of the old donut series was like, you can put bigger sprinkles, like a few big chunky sprinkles on it. And it just adds variance to it and it just makes it look a lot more.
Oh, I saw this
so
in
for
his
that,
final render.
you could do it using geometry nodes, but I just do it by hand placing like 3 sprinkles. So on this donut here, shift right clicking on this part of the donut. I'll go into, here we go, solid view mode, and then shift A, and then I'm going to add in a UV sphere. Default settings are okay. I'm just going to scale it down. Like that, right? So this is the size of the sprinkle, quite big. You could imagine it almost as like a gumball or something. It's probably not big enough to be a gumball, but you know what I mean, like something big, right? Make sure you're using shade smooth. And for the material, sorry if this is like getting too in the weeds, but a lot of people in their following tutorials, they like to know the exact settings that I used. So I'm trying to show them all whilst not taking too long. But yeah, there we go. So I go for like a aqua color, yeah, like that. And then I want to turn the roughness like all the way down, like that. Cool. And now I just need to duplicate that sprinkle. So duplicate here. I'll pull it out. I'm just going to go with 3. You could go for more, but I'm just going to go with 3. And I'm only going to put it on this donut. I'm not going to bother with the others. I'm going to say this is the special one. This is the one that we want your eye to be drawn to. So this is the one with a little bit more detail than the others. I'm sorry if I'm doing a horrible zigzaggy job of... I could do snapping, but I'm like, it's just too much work to do the snapping functions for this. So I'm going to select those 3, shift, select the icing, control P, and then go keep transform. There we go. So now they're all attached to that. Just in case I move the donut, it's correctly done. The final thing I think I changed was the world settings underneath the air and dust for our sky texture. I just dialed it back to around about 0.7. Just a little bit cooler in the lighting, right? As I might remember, I told you, if you go all the way there, it's like the sky just becomes like blue. And if it's too far up, then it becomes yellow and orange or whatever, like kind of too decayed. But, like a 0.7-ish, it'll just look, it just feels a little cleaner in comparison to what it was. Awesome. Now we're almost there. I promise you, we're almost there. The one thing that you probably do want to know how to add is depth of field. It adds a lot because every single camera in the real world has depth of field, except for pinhole cameras, interestingly, because there is no optics in a pinhole camera, so it can have like infinite depth of field, supposedly. Anyways, the depth of field settings is underneath your camera. Okay, so select your camera, then click on the data.
Where's the camera? Uh-oh. Well, there's the camera. Bloop. Oh, that's interesting. It's a 36 millimeter. Wait. Oh, I'm thinking of film. Like, I'm thinking of 35 millimeter. That's not right. I don't know.
Here, and then depth of field right at the bottom. So check that box and everything will become blurry because it doesn't have a focus object yet. So click the little eyedropper tool and then just click on this icing, this pink donut icing right in the front here. And there you go. So that is depth of field. It used to be really difficult to do in Blender. I started 20 years ago and it was this horrible motion blur thing you had to do for the camera to rotate it. Anyway, it's just a checkbox now. It's fascinating. Anyways, the f-stop, if you're unfamiliar with cameras, the lower the f-stop, the shallower that depth of field. So you can see very little of this image is actually in focus. So it's actually good for miniatures. But if you want more of the scene to be in focus, you want more of this donut stack to be seen, I would go with an f-stop somewhere between 6 or 8, something around the range. I think I went with 8 for my final one, or maybe it was 6. Can't remember. Anyways, but you can see the stuff in the background there is now out of focus, and it puts the attention where it should be, right on those donuts in the middle there. And the other thing that I always forget to enable is motion blur. So underneath your render settings here, you just need to check motion blur. And I actually find the default setting is usually fine. It's a little smooth, it's a little bit too blurry sometimes, so you might want to drop it to 0.4 or something. But I don't know, it should be defined with the default. It usually looks okay. Too blurry sometimes, so you might want to drop it to 0.4. Something, but I don't know, it should be defined with the default. It usually looks okay. So, are we ready to render our final animation? Well, I actually thought yes. So that little jump cut that you saw there was me going, yep, let's render that animation. And then I rendered it out. And then I came back and I went, wait a minute. I've made some errors. Bom, bom. Now, can you tell what they are? I will give you a clue. Right here, right here, right here. We're missing those 3 little balls that we created, little sprinkles. And then also, look in the background here. Mysteriously dark. Almost as if the area lamp that we added is not there. So, I'll first of all say, it's very common to do this. You think that you're finally ready, yeah, everything looks good, kick off the final animation. I've sometimes waited over a week for a whole animation to finish, and then I come back, and then I open it up, and then I go, oh no, I forgot to turn off that layer, I forgot to turn on that layer, I forgot, Actually, a technique that Pixar uses, I learned at one of the SIGGRAPH presentations they did, they said they render the first frame, the middle frame, and the end frame of every shot before they do the full animation sequence, because that usually reveals any problems in the animation, which they can then correct. So I should have done that, but didn't. Anyways, what was my mistake? Well, when we disabled this sprinkles collection, right? We disabled it from appearing in the render. That's fine. But when we created these objects, I didn't check what was the active collection. So when you add a new object, it adds it to whatever is the selected collection, this little one with the little box around it. So obviously, it put it inside of that collection. So these spheres should not be inside the sprinkles. So I'm going to drag it out into a donuts collection, which is where it should be. And then this area lamp as well. That's the reason that the background is dark, is because that was inside the sprinkles, so it was hidden from the render as well. So now putting that into the environment, that now should look a lot better. So do a test render just by hitting F12, see how that looks first, what I should have done. I mean, even just doing one render could have revealed this problem. It's that obvious. But do a test render, check, look, we've got the balls appearing, the fill light is now in the background. And the other thing I noticed, and this is because it's the next day that I'm recording this, when you look at something with fresh eyes, you often notice different things. So I thought that this exposure looked pretty good, but then now having a look at it the next day, I can see that it's a little overexposed. Okay, so if you look at the false
I don't know why it's taking forever. It wasn't taking forever the other day. This is actually genuinely frozen. There shouldn't be 4 hours. Well, this is the test render too. My goodness. I can't even see the background. Goodness, this is insane. I have like, it was working the other day. This is actually insane. So I have 1,000 samples here, and yet it's rendering so much faster. Which one was it? System. Just do both? What would happen if I did both? That's the question. Let's see. So I have both selected. It's going to take a minute. Render image. Oh, this was still... Wow. That depth of field is way off. Maybe 8. Maybe I never go this high. Let's see if this is any faster. This makes me cringe that this is one frame. Are you kidding me right now? Why was it so fast the other day and then now it's so slow? Okay. Either way, why is this frozen now? It's because we're rendering this. Oh, it is actually because we're rendering that. Okay. So
color, this is what it looks like, and there's just too much orange there. So essentially I'm going to drop this back to be, so it's like mostly yellow across the front of these donuts here. Well, not mostly yellow, but more yellow than what there was before. There's not really an exact way to sort of pinpoint it, but I could just tell it's a little overexposed. So I'm just dialing it back to be a little more reasonable. Again, your exposure ranges might be different depending on how close your donuts are to the window or something, but look at it with your own eyes, and if it looks wrong when you're using this exposure range, use a different value, tweak it, and try to make it look accurate. Because actually I was on Discord this morning looking at some of your renders, join the Discord if you're not on there, and I was like, okay, a lot of people also have overexposed renders, so I should bring that up. Anyway.
I was not able to join the Discord. The link did not work when I tried clicking it.
We are now finally ready to do a render. So again, I am using no noise threshold, 500 samples, probably get that up to 1,000 if you want to be non-jittery, denoise, open image denoise, and then I'm outputting it to TIFFs, just RGB, we don't need alpha, 8-bit, and then I'm just putting it into a folder, which, because I made a mistake, I'm going to put it into another file. I made two mistakes, rendered it twice. I'll put it into a 3, right? That's why I put them in subfolders. Anyways, now that I'm ready, I'm going to go render animation. And this is now kicking it off. I can now leave it, walk away.
Did any of my stuff accidentally render? The stuff that I canceled? No. Okay, we can still use the same folder. 30 frames goes into the same folder. RGB. Okay. I'm going to call it good for there. One of the things I didn't really think about is how much time it would take to Hello? Huh. I didn't really think how long it would take to render. So this might not actually be the last stream because I didn't realize I need to render the thing. So I'm going to export this just with the settings that I have right now because they look to be fine, albeit slow. So I might do some research on how rendering works because I honestly have no idea.
And it will just start, as it finishes rendering, it will just start dumping it into the folder. And there you go. So you can see it's rendered 3 frames. So we've got 3 images here. Once it's finished, we should have 160 TIFF files inside this folder, which you will have to watch the final part of this tutorial to learn how to take that sequence and form a video file that you can use and send, etc. So click here to watch the final part of this tutorial series. Well, you made it. The end of the series. You've watched 14 videos. So before I show you how to turn the image sequence into a final video, I do want to say congratulations because everyone says they want to learn new skills and very few people actually want to put in the time. So if you're watching this, you have clearly put in the time. So I mean that truly, well done.
I'm going to watch this just for now, although I do need to export the stuff, but it doesn't look like it'll be too complicated. So I'll just watch this now.
Now, if you are able to go from this series and then go off and create and get what you want out of Blender, then fantastic. But what I've learned over the years is that there is a percentage of people who want more. They want to know what tutorials to watch next to level up their career. So I am in the process of creating a Blender course for beginners. Special. So this is going to be for you guys, essentially, people who finish this course and then they want more. They want to know how do they do other parts of Blender beyond just a donut. So it's not available yet, but I'm looking to release it in early 2024 if I can. So if you want to be notified when it is available, click the link in the description and you can join a separate email list just for this course to be notified once it is available. It's not going to be free. It is going to be a paid course, but it is, for people who really want to take this seriously and make a career out of it, that is for you. So with that out of the way, now onto the tutorial. If you follow the last part correctly, you should find inside this folder 160 TIFF files, which are, you can open them individually and look at the images, but if you want to create a video, then this is what you do. If you're using this as part of another video project, then you might be using software like Premiere. I know that's not all of you, but I'll just quickly show you for those who want to use Premiere instead. You just click on the first image and then check image sequence. That'll import it and then just drag that into a new sequence, and there you go. And then you can just export that as you would any. That's not all of you, but I'll just quickly show you for those who want to use Premiere instead. You just click on the first image and then check image sequence. Premiere. I know that's not all of you, but I'll just quickly show you for those who want to use Premiere instead. You just click on the first image and then check image sequence. That'll import it and then just drag that into a new sequence, and there you go. And then you can just export that as you would anything in Premiere or edit it, etc.
Okay.
But if you want to use Blender, if you want to go the free route, there is actually a video editor inside of Blender. Now you can access it from.
Oh, so this is all optional. I would probably choose option A because it's easier.
Inside here, but I actually find it easier and better to just create a new Blender instance. So for that, I go File, New, and then you can go General, but actually if you go Video Editing, then that will just set it up for you, ready to go, and it saves a bunch of time. This isn't like a special version of Blender or anything when you choose this. Like if you want to use, the standard Blender layout or whatever, it's still there. It's just it's created this video, like this screen layout and everything is already configured and ready to go for you. Anyways, so down here, this is your video editor. This is the sequence as it's called, and then up here is going to show you the video that it's displaying. So the first thing you need to do is load in that image sequence. So Shift A hotkey works all over the Blender. Choose Image Sequence. Navigate to that folder where you have all of these TIFF files. And unlike Premiere, where you select the first one and then import that, this one you need to select all of them. So the hotkey is just A to select everything. Hotkeys work everywhere across Blender, and then go Add Image Strip. Aha. Now you can see we've got this strip at the bottom here, and if we hit the spacebar, we should see at the top the image sequence playing. Awesome. Now, it looks a little slow, and you'll see, actually, in the top left-hand corner, it's playing at 24 frames a second. And that's because although we set it up as 30 frames a second, we just rendered that into the image sequence. It doesn't know what the frame rate is. The only reason we did that was so that when you're playing the animation in the viewport, it's actually at the correct speed. But to set it up here, you set your frame rate here from 24 to 30. And now if you play it, you'll see it's going at 30 frames a second. It's a little faster, it's a little smoother, and it looks good. Great. Now you can see it just kind of ends, right? Just goes into like blank nothing. And we don't want that. I want to really hold on this end frame because this is the important frame where all the donuts are revealed at the end there. And it's really easy to extend the last frame. You just click on the end of that strip at the bottom there till it lights up white, and then you can either click and drag out or hit the hotkey G to grab, and we can just move it all the way to the end. So 250, that's what the final, like the frame range here is, right? If you want it to be longer or shorter, you can change it there, but I'm gonna keep it at 250. So that means now it gets to the end and then it just holds here and lets you soak in those donuts. Cool. And this is fine. You could export this, but I also just want to have a nice fade out at the end because why not? Just learn about something in the video sequence editor. To do that, I'm going to go Shift A and then add in a color. And the color is already set up as black, so that's fine. So I'm just dragging it over the end here. And you can see it just jumps to the color because that's now over the top of that other strip. So it's reading top to bottom, so it's black is over the top. And instead of it being a jump cut to black, we obviously want to fade.
Oh, I'm so tired right now.
It. So to do that, just click that strip there and then say Shift A and then say fade in. And you'll see it's hard to read here from this because it's got like black at the bottom, but there is a, actually can I do that? I'm using the same hotkey control middle mouse button as when we're using the graph editor, but you can see there is like a slight, like a little ramp up like that. That's just showing you it's fading in. But there you go, that's the fade in effect there. And what that is doing is it's just created a keyframe animation for this opacity slider to just do a very quick fade in there. But there you go. So now that's it. that's what we want. This is what we want to form into a video file, which we could upload to YouTube or Instagram or whatever. So to create that, here in your output settings, you want to again choose a folder that you want to save it to. I usually save it inside of the folder with the frames, and I just call it video and then say accept. Now, because we set this up as a new video editing file, it's automatically set the file format for us as FFmpeg video. And this is actually the most flexible. I've never needed AVI, JPEG, or RAW. It just creates those ginormous gigabyte files that you can never do anything with anyway. So FFmpeg is the one you want because it's got the most options. And go underneath encoding, and this is where you'll find all of your video settings for encoding. So the container, that is your, like, think of it as the file extension, right? So if it's a .mov file, that would be QuickTime. If it is a .mkv file, that annoying format that Premiere can't read, and it's supposed to be better than MP4s, but nothing can read it except VLC. Anyways, that would be Matroska. Matroska is the one. WebM, that's like a format that is becoming more common online. You could use that. Anyways, we're going to use MP4, so that's MPEG-4, because that's the most common one that most people need. Video codec, we're going to leave it at the default. H.264 is fine. Now, if you're used to like all these settings of bit rates and all that, you can go into that just by setting like constant bit rate, and you can change all this. But I usually just choose one of the, I think of these as like presets, right? So high quality is probably good enough for most people. If you want to go even higher quality, perceptually lossless will mean it's almost the highest quality possible, so there's no loss. Lossless would put it at no loss at all, so it's like the highest quality. I don't think you ever need that. Like perceptually lossless is probably fine for like more than every case you would need, right? So perceptually lossless, and that's it. Audio, we don't have any audio. If you wanted to, you could add in sound here if you wanted to. We don't have audio, so I'm going to set the audio codec to.
Wow. It's like an entire
audio
editor.
I don't think it makes a difference to the output, but anyway.
With keyframes
and
stuff.
that's it. So now what do you do to export this? The same as before, it's render animation. And what this does is it just chews through those frames in the sequence. And you can see at the bottom there how fast it's going. And it's going to fade out. Whoop. And that's it. So the reason I did that, by the way, is like, because like how would it know like not to render from the camera? Because we just said render animation. It's because in your, where is it? Way at the bottom there on my face. We've got post-processing, and it's set to sequencer, right? And if it detects anything in your sequencer, if it detects anything in this strip here, it will then render this instead of what is in the camera. So that's how it knows to use those frames instead of render. Anyways, all to say, look, we have our video. Playing nicely, holds, soak it up, look at them donuts, fade out. Ta-da. So, well done. You did it. Congratulations. You made it to the end of the series. If you want a challenge, why not create some donut variations? You could change the color of the icing and then model some star-shaped sprinkles, and then you've got a patriotic donut scene. You could use the Polygon add-on to import some of our free candles, and then some moonlight for a moody candlelight donut scene. You could experiment with some different marble textures. There's a lot there. You could make the sprinkles gold. You could add in some whiskey glasses, a serving board for a high-class, expensive donut-looking scene. You could decorate it with fruit and palm tree models for a tropical-themed donut scene. Or you could add in some pumpkins, change the colors around, and you've got a fall-themed donut scene. There's a lot that you could do, so have a stab. Have a go at it, and try to elevate this and make the donut scene your own, because that's where the real learning comes in. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in a future video.
This feels surreal to me. Hi. My name is Benjamin Dirksen, and I just finished almost, technically, Blender tutorial. Let me select... render animation. Okay, this is going to take a while. I'm so tired right now. Oh, it's almost 10 o'clock already. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well. We're done. Here's this. But again, it's going to take like a couple minutes just to render one frame, and it's going to have to be 160 frames, which means I'm going to have to leave this going overnight, because this is going to take many, many hours to render this tiny little thing, because I don't know how rendering works, because I feel like it should be way faster, but I don't know the rendering settings for Mac. So, all that being said, that would take hours and hours and hours, and I don't have hours and hours and hours. So this is done. I will definitely be uploading this video to YouTube when it's done rendering. I don't know if I'll do the customization. I have a lot of other projects that I want to get to. Maybe I will. I really want to get into the visual effects stuff, which is something that he didn't even mention, like motion tracking and stuff like that. So it's so many more tutorials that I still have to learn to get a hold of that. So a lot of more tutorials in my future, and I have a few ideas of things that I want to make. I don't want to seem like all that, because I spent like 6 days learning Blender and all of a sudden I know everything. That's absolutely not the case, and there's a lot more that I still have to learn, and I forgot like 90% of this stuff. But overall, I'm being reflective right now, and I feel like I might actually hate the rendering more than anything I've done in the past 6 days, which is insane. We're like a quarter of the way through the first render. It's insane. Yeah, thank you all for sticking with it. If you've made it this far watching through these, again, I'll be uploading this final product, and yeah, so be on the lookout for that. This was a lot of fun. Was it a lot of fun? It was very rewarding, is what I'll say. And I definitely do plan on continuing with 3D rendering in the future. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I just realized that I've been streaming at 60 frames a second, which means, does that mean that I've been... Let me take a look at the live stream real quick. Have we been streaming 1080 60? That's crazy. Okay. Well, that was overkill for no reason, but I guess that's how it's been. I didn't even look at those settings. Yeah, thank you all very much. I wonder if I close out of OBS, it'll render faster maybe. Either way, I will catch you all in the next one. Adios. Peace. This is a side note. I actually don't know what song to play next because I only looked up one set song, which I already played at the beginning. So, yeah. Wait, I think I found something.
Roma, Roma, ma, ga, ga, ooh la la, what's your bad romance? Roma, Roma, ma, ga, ga, ooh la la, what's your bad romance? I want you ugly, I want you disease, I want you everything as long as it's free. I want your love, 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 I want your love. I want your drama. je veux te revendre, je donne l'amour. I don't wanna be friends. No, I wanna be friends. I wanna be friends. What you borrow? What you borrow? I want your love and I want your revenge. You and me could write a bad romance. I want your love and all your love's revenge. You and me could write a bad romance. What you borrow? What you borrow? What you borrow? Ra ra Roma Roma ma ga ga ooh la la，我叫 bad romance。